Good morning, Little Masters, and welcome back to today's Tolkien Times, a Prancing Pony podcast production. I'm the Man of the West, and it is time to keep Series 13 of the TTT going as we begin Week 97 with another Middle-earth Map Monday. We've spent a lot of time in Gondor, folks, specifically the region of Anorion, and today we're continuing that as we still find ourselves in the vast city of Gard, Minas Tirith. Now, last week we saw evidence of its decay, and we wandered around the citadel, taking closer looks at the Court of the Fountain and the Hall of Kings. Today, we'll finish up our time on the citadel and, with luck, take a look at some of the other levels of the city. Now, after meeting Barragond, Pippin, hungry as he is, remembers that Gandalf asked him to check on Shadowfax. But for this, he had to go down a level. We read, Pippin found that Shadowfax had been well housed and tended. For in the sixth circle, outside the walls of the citadel, there were some fair stables where a few swift horses were kept, hard by the lodgings of the errand riders of the Lord, messengers always ready to go at the urgent command of Denethor or his chief captains. Now, after making sure Shadowfax's manger was filled, it's time to eat. "And now for our manger," said Barragond, and he led Pippin back to the citadel, and so to a door in the north side of the great tower. There they went down a long, cool stair into a wide alley lit with lamps. There were hatches in the walls at the side, and one of these was open. "This is the storehouse and buttery of my company of the guard," said Barragond. A buttery was originally a large cellar room beneath a monastery, where food and drink were kept in order to feed strangers and guests. Now, for a really fun Philology Faire on the etymology of the word buttery, go to episode 266, where Sean and I can barely hold ourselves together. Now, this isn't the only place involving food here on the Citadel level. After the War of the Ring, and after the wedding of Aragorn and Arwen, we read in many partings, "In 3 days, as the king had said, Eomer of Rohan came riding to the city, and with him came an Eored of the fairest knights of the Mark. He was welcomed, and when they sat all at table in Merathrond, the great hall of feasts, he beheld the beauty of the ladies that he saw, and was filled with great wonder." Now, Merathrond, this great hall of feasts, was a building located to the north of the Tower of Ecthelion in the Citadel. That would be to its right if you were standing in front of it, facing it. And now, aside from the unnamed or unseen other buildings, barracks for the guards at the very least, and other support buildings, we have seen all that is to be seen on the 7th level, the Citadel. So let's move down one level to the 6th level again, where we visited the stables earlier. When we are with Gandalf, Barragond, and Pippin as they leave the tragic scene in the Hollows, we read, "Now at last they passed into the high circles of the city, and in the light of morning they went their way towards the houses of healing. And these were fair houses set apart for the care of those who were grievously sick. But now they were prepared for the tending of men hurt in battle or dying. They stood not far from the citadel gate in the 6th circle, nigh to its southward wall, and about them was a garden and a greensward with trees, the only such place in the city." So if you're imagining that switchback road that goes up and up, the gates on the 2nd, 4th, and 6th levels looked southwest. So if you went through that gate and turned a sharp right on the 6th level, you would encounter the stables that we looked at earlier, before going into the tunnel and then hanging a left to go up to the citadel. But if you turn left from the gate, that's where the houses of healing are, right? They're still close enough to the citadel gate so that Faramir and Éowyn can look out towards the north, though not, of course, due north from here because the mountain would be in the way. Now, there is one other place on the 6th level that features heavily in the story. We read that Denethor, Pippin, and 6 household men went on through the citadel gate, where the sentinels stared at them in wonder and dismay as they passed by. Turning westward, they came at length to a door in the rearward wall of the 6th circle. Fen Hallen it was called, for it was kept ever shut, save at times of funeral, and only the lord of the city might use that way, or those who bore the token of the tombs and tended the houses of the dead. Beyond it went a winding road that descended in many curves down to the narrow land under the shadow of Mindalluin's precipice, where stood the mansions of the dead kings and of their stewards. Later, after going through the gate, we read, "It was dark on the climbing road between ancient walls and many pillared balusters looming in the swaying lantern beam. Their slow feet echoed as they walked down, down, until at last they came to the silent street, Rath Dínen, between pale domes and empty halls and images of men long dead, and they entered into the house of the stewards and set down their burden. Now, there is one other location named and featured in the story, and it's all the way down on the very first level. After Pippin had shared lunch with Beregond and the men of the Third Company, his new friend bade him farewell as he had duty. "But if you are lonely, as you say, maybe you would like a merry guide about the city. My son would go with you gladly. A good lad, I may say. If that pleases you, go down to the lowest circle and ask for the old guest house in the Rath Dínen, the Lampright Street. You will find him there with other lads that are remaining in the city. There may be things worth seeing down at the great gate ere the closing." Later, Pippin came at last by arched streets and many fair alleys and pavements to the lowest and widest circle. And there he was directed to the Lampright Street, a broad way running towards the great gate. In it he found the old guest house, a large building of gray weathered stone with two wings running back from the street, and between them a narrow greensward, behind which was the many-windowed house, fronted along its whole width by a pillared porch and a flight of steps down onto the grass. And that's really it for the City of Minas Tirith, except for one lovely paragraph of epilogue found in Book 6, Chapter 5, The Steward and the King. "And in that moment all the trumpets were blown, and the King Elessar went forth and came to the barrier, and Hurin of the Keys thrust it back. And amid the music of harp and viol and of flute and the singing of clear voices, the king passed through the flower-laden streets and came to the citadel and entered in. And the banner of the tree and the stars was unfurled upon the topmost tower, and the reign of King Elessar began, of which many songs have told. In his time the city was made more fair than it had ever been, even in the days of its first glory. And it was filled with trees and with fountains, and its gates were wrought of mithril and steel, and its streets were paved with white marble. And the folk of the mountain labored in it, and the folk of the wood rejoiced to come there. And all was healed and made good, and the houses were filled with men and women and the laughter of children, and no window was blind nor any courtyard empty. And after the ending of the third age of the world into the new age, it preserved the memory and the glory of the years that were gone." That's a beautiful picture. Folks, that wraps it up for this week's very long Middle-earth Map Monday. A big thank you to those of you who support the show on Patreon. Your support gives me what I need to create these episodes. Hard to believe I'm closing in on 600 of them. If you're not yet a patron of the show, please visit patreon.com/Tolkien Times. Join me again tomorrow on today's Tolkien Times as we continue in the revised letters on Tolkien Tuesdays. And you know the routine by now. Subscribe to the TTT in your podcast apps or to this channel here on YouTube, and be sure you're following at Prancing Pony Pod on social media. Finally, as Faramir says, go with the goodwill of all good men.